Greetings to all and welcome to our first Brickell Alliance, specifically focused on COVID-19. My name is Marta Garcia Arnold and I am the president of Brickell Alliance. I'm especially pleased to introduce our panelists, County Commissioner Eileen Higgins, wave.
Hi, everyone.
City Commissioner Ken Russell.
Good afternoon.
And our special guest, Miami Council Commander Fabria Ellington. Commander, a wave.
Hello, hi.
For those of you who are new to us, we recently launched Brickell Alliance to bring all members of our community together to solve problems and work toward a common goal of improving the long-term economic, social, and environmental sustainability of Brickell. This means outreach to our residents, whether owners or renters or businesses, commuters, and of course, our government representatives who care about and are committed to making Brickell a great place to live, play, and do business. We're thrilled to have, I can't believe it, 375 registered community members from across all those groups participating in today's town hall. It's a bit daunting, and we are just so grateful for their participation. This town hall has been made possible by our core team of founding members, whom I'd like to introduce very quickly to you now. First, our Vice President, Cynthia McFarland. Cynthia, wave.
Hi, how is everyone?
And she's one of our co-moderators today. Secondly, we've got our Treasurer, Mia Patch, and our other co-moderator today. And then our Secretary, Rosita Federico. Rosita, where are you?
Welcome.
There you go. And our Director, Martha Reeves.
Hi.
And without further ado, I will hand over our town hall to our co-moderators, Cynthia and Mia. Ladies, take it away.
Thank you very much, Marta. And I echo your sentiments in terms of how thrilled we are to have the, over 375 people registered. We're really excited. We have an agenda that we've shared with everyone that I know the primary driver of it is how interested and concerned everyone is with what's happening currently with the pandemic. A few housekeeping items that Mia was going to cover for us with respect to chat and submitting questions and things like that.
Yes, so good afternoon, everyone. Listen, I am not a technological wizard here. We had no idea when we started this, we were gonna have almost 400 people participating. So although it does let you have the option of raising your hand, we obviously cannot have 400 different people asking audio questions. So we're asking you please to submit all of your questions using the Q&A. It's at the bottom of your screen, and we are going to do our best to get as many questions answered as we possibly can. So again, ignore the raising the hand because we can't let everybody speak, but please, please, please do your questions through the Q&A and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much.
All right, so let's get going. The first topic that we had on the agenda was the city and the county's response to the pandemic and to COVID-19. I'd like to ask the first question to Commissioner Higgins. What is the city and what is the county doing currently to help us deal with this crisis?
Well, I don't know if you want to let me share my screen. I just have a couple bullet points.
We actually have your slides. Camilla shared them with us already.
Oh, great. Okay. So perfect. Even better. I love this kind of a webinar. I don't have to do anything. So first of all, there's probably 1 million emergency orders that we've all been dealing with. But the only two that really matter is the shelter in place, safer at home, cover your face, wear a mask stuff. Those still remain in place at the county level and at the state level. The county has been reasonably aggressive, and Commissioner Russell can talk a bit more about the city, about making sure when we're out in public that we're covering our nose and our mouths, And there's a few, you know, in grocery stores, in pharmacies, on construction sites, et cetera, et cetera. I wear one anytime I leave the apartment. I'm getting to the point now where I actually think it's kind of a sign of respect for other people, that I care about their health and they care about my health. And my guess is we're going to be doing that for quite a long time. Everyone's telling us they can be cute, they can be ugly, they can be whatever, but if we're keeping the whole community safe. The other thing that we set out as a priority was making sure we prioritize the most vulnerable groups to the disease. The first group we can see from the folks that are most likely to succumb to COVID-19 is seniors. And so from the very day that our mayor, the county mayor, Mayor Jimenez, issued the emergency order, we closed all of our comedores, any place where seniors gathered for lunches or for, you know, dominoes games in the afternoon. We really just closed all those down. And then what we have done is we have made sure that every person over the age of 60, you don't even have to be a 65-year-old, is eligible to receive free home delivered meals. And so as of today, we have delivered over 1.3 million meals to seniors. So that continues to go on today. If you know anybody over the age of 60 that is just still nervous about going to the grocery store or uncomfortable with, you know, delivery, all they have to do is call 311 and we're dropping off a week's worth of meals. And I'll tell you what, when you look at our disease curve in Miami-Dade County, it's younger. And it's not good for, you know, 50-year-olds or 40-year-olds or 30-year-olds to get the disease. But that age group is much more likely to survive. And I remain convinced that by the fact that the county has done such a good job at meal delivery for seniors that we have managed to keep them home, which is where they needed to be. Homeless, I know you guys know that even under the best of circumstances, this is very difficult. We have procured 3 hotels. That was not easy, I can tell you, even though our hotels are all empty. Finding hotel owners that were willing to let us house this vulnerable population was very difficult. And so we have anyone that has either been tested or we have had a few positives in our homeless population. We have managed to trace their contacts and get these folks into hotels. Part of the complications around that is actually particularly not for the homeless families, right? Homeless families are easier, but for the street homeless, you cannot put someone in a hotel and expect them to stay there. We need the mental health counseling, the drug abuse counseling, and the security. So that, truth be told, took a lot longer than I would have liked to set up, because if you imagine what we're used to in emergencies for the homeless is a hurricane, we gather them all together. Well, our homeless shelters, we have 60 men sleeping in a shelter. And so now we are slowly trying to make sure anybody that's at risk is at a hotel. They are trusting folks on the street. We have managed to get many more tests for the Homeless Trust. And so we are administering tests on the street as well as in the shelters, but it's been extremely difficult. I'm not going to lie about that. Testing, yeah.
Sorry, if I may, because we had a homeless later, but since we've gotten into this, I did have a few questions actually for either one of you, either one of the two commissioners.
And maybe the commander too, because
yeah, exactly. We know that restaurants across the Brickell area were traditionally feeding the homeless, and now that the restaurants are shut down or they're on reduced hours, what is the city or the county doing to make sure that they can be fed?
So the Homeless Trust has actually started to increase the amount of meals that they're serving to the street homeless. And bear in mind, the Homeless Trust would never recommend that any restaurant feed the homeless, right? Let's remember, if they're getting all of their needs on the street, there's no reason for them to show up to the places where we do have meals available, where we also have mental health counseling, we have drug abuse counseling, and the idea of trying to get the folks off the street is to get them comfortable with care. And so the more often we're able to let them live 100% on the streets without having to confront mental health and health professionals, it's harder. So if you do know of any one or location where you feel like they have not had meals delivered, please reach out to our office and we'll feed that into the Homeless Trust. And maybe Commissioner Russell or the commander might have insights on that.
Commissioner Russell?
Thank you, Commander, and thanks, Eileen. It's great to see everybody here. I see over 211 participants right now in this webinar, which is definitely a record for me in terms of a Zoom meeting. So it's great to see that sort of engagement. I know the stress levels are high, the anxiety's high. Everybody's looking for answers about our future and everything. So I'm glad you're all here, and I'm glad we've got the commissioner and the commander as well to help. With regard to homeless, yes, the county has done a lot. The hotel rooms, it's a bigger lift than what it sounds like. It's absolutely really amazing that anyone who has risk of transmission does have a place to stay. The shelters have even converted some of their rooms to be negative pressure rooms through their HVAC system so that they could isolate someone and keep the pressure within the room so that the germs aren't being blown throughout the facility. So you can rest assured that the shelters themselves are taking extreme measures to take this very seriously and make sure they don't become a vector of transmission. And so we're very comfortable with that. I've been meeting with the different shelters. I've been delivering cotton masks to the shelters where possible. And I know the housing situation and the food situation is being handled. So our outreach teams are out in the street and working with the homeless, but you do see they are out there and they are quite close together. But we, you know, there are services available for them. So please rest assured that that's taking place.
Commander, did you want to add anything? You have us on mute.
And I know you're not driving and Zooming, Commander.
No, I'm not. I apologize. I put it on mute so it didn't echo. But for the police department, we still are working with the homeless assistance program to try to get the homeless into shelters so they can get safely out of the street. Just like Commissioner Higgins said, you know, when they get all their needs met out on the street, then they don't want those assistance. So do understand that they can refuse even with the pandemic, and they have been. So that's why, you know, I know a lot of people still see a lot of homeless, you know, on the street, still homeless activity, because they do have the right to turn down those services, which most of them do.
A lot of the homeless people spend most of their time in parks, and obviously as the parks have been closed, they've had to move elsewhere. What kind of issues is that creating in terms of making sure that they're able to maintain social distance?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that as somebody who goes to all the parks. I'm a daily visitor to Bayfront Park, also down to the park under the Key Biscayne Bridge. By closing the parks, which I understand the theory behind it, but it has compressed now the homeless out onto Biscayne. And so one has to think in a weird sort of way that it's actually making the situation a little bit worse than better, because now they aren't able to social distance at all. And they're also out in the streets more. So is there anything that we can do or anything that can be done to alleviate that?
Sure. So I'll speak a little bit to the parks closures. And so we're working with various jurisdictions here. And what our city attorney has opined is that you start from the highest jurisdiction, let's say the state government. Whatever they deem necessary in their emergency order is the floor for the rest of us. They preempt us from being less stringent than they are. So whatever the state does, whatever the county does, the city must do that at a minimum. From there, the city and or the county could go more stringent than the state, but not less. And so currently under the county order, we have parks closures, and we do agree with that. It has had negative unintended consequences, both for not only the homeless, but for those who are exercising. They are now jammed up on the sidewalks. It's actually had the opposite of the intended effect. So once we can get the right type of regulation and enforcement and education in place, and we see it being practiced by those who are out exercising, et cetera, we'll be able to slowly start to open those facilities, the parks and beaches back up. But the city can't do it before the county can't do it before the state, et cetera. But I'm not ready to do it until I know for sure that we have the ability to educate and enforce, and that our public recognizes the reasoning behind the social distancing, so that if they do go into a park, they practice the right measures. The reason we're still seeing people violate it, even those who are, you know, exercising together way too close together. We had to close the parks because of people still playing volleyball, etc. And so
Exactly.
it's a shame we've had to go this far, but it is the right thing to do. The city of Miami, and I'm going to go into this when I speak to my part, and I'm sorry to interject here, that we are in a good place within the curve. It means we're doing the right things.
Right, but at the same time, Commissioner Russell, if you go down towards the Key Biscayne Bridge on any given day in the morning or in the evening, it's like Fifth Avenue in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It isn't even remotely possible to exercise social distancing. You're just lucky if you don't get run over, you know,
Agreed.
either walking or whatever. So I don't.
For that reason, I actually was able to convince the Parks Department and the city manager to open up jogging paths that were parallel to Bayshore Drive, leading up to the Rickenbacker. So the major parks that are along Bayshore Drive, we're not opening the parks, but if there's a large jogging path parallel to the sidewalk, we've opened that up.
Right,
So
because at one point they had police tape all across that, and it made it even worse. I mean,
Correct.
it was 10 times worse.
Yeah, and I just, you know, and let's just be very clear, none of us have ever done this before.
Right.
So none of us, like Commissioner Russell, I haven't, and so we are trying things, and sometimes they work better, and we're trying things, and sometimes they're not. But I can tell you the closures of the park, the city of Miami closed their parks much earlier than the county did. We were really trying to say, our parks can be open so you can walk in them, right? The county has some very, very big parks. You can walk in them, you can enjoy it, it's social distancing. It ends up, people weren't able to exercise that personal freedom and flexibility, and so we did close all the parks. And so it's a give and take where we, the people, have to make some smart choices. And if people aren't comfortable walking on the Rickenbacker Causeway, they shouldn't go there for their own health, because we can't police 2.8 million people in this county. And I'm sorry about that. But we do know there are people that aren't perfectly practicing social distancing. And so there's things we're learning. Like, for example, let's say we do open up a place. I'll use, I'll use sort of right around the church in Brickell, the Presbyterian church, and you know, when you can walk by the Tequesta Circle. Like right now, you can go both directions, which makes it harder to social distance. Maybe as we open up, we begin brainstorming about how that becomes a one-way circle, right? You go just this way and you come around and then you come out on Brickell Avenue. So I think we're gonna find a lot of ways that we can work together. But I will tell you, as much as we try, we're not going to get every street perfect. We're not going to get every park perfect, and which doesn't mean we're not taking input and adjusting those behaviors every day.
The Baywalk is also meant to be open currently, so that is more space for people. Some areas have closed off, but the intention currently is for the Baywalk to be available for people to exercise and walk.
Yeah, and that, you know, downtown, because Bayfront Park is such a big part of it, means everyone's, you know, so it's tricky. It's tricky. It's not going to be perfect
I'm seeing on the Q&A chat here a lot of questions about lack of compliance, people feeling that they can't even go out for a walk with their kids. You know, we've got to figure, none of us have done this before, but people are getting pretty crazy being cooped up all the time, and they want to be able to safely go outside with their families, and they cite the main reasons are the lack of social distancing and the homeless.
Commander, is there anything that the police are doing to help enforce social distancing? Or are there any opportunities to do so?
Yes, we are. Like Commissioner Higgins said again, you know, we can't police everyone. So what I would definitely like, and I'm glad you brought it up because it gives me an opportunity to speak upon it, I would like for people to be more responsible and kind of police themselves. So everyone wants to go to the Bay and walk, or to the Rickenbacker and walk, because it's a beautiful view, but right now it may not be safe to do so. So maybe walking in a neighborhood or find a location that is not as busy to alleviate some of the people being in that particular area will help out a lot. we don't have the resources to keep officers there all the time, because obviously there's other, concerns and issues in the area. So we definitely need people to be more responsible and kind of police themselves, and just maybe look for another area to go walking with your family or to walk your dog. Maybe, if you live in the roads, just, kind of try to find a street in that area to just walk around. And I get it. Everybody wants to get out and get some air, including myself. But we just got to be more responsible in doing so.
Yeah, just so you all see, because I don't know if you can see at the same time that you're talking, and Commander, I don't know if you can see the traffic on the Q&A here, but it really is all related to a general quality of life frustration with not being able to, go out and exercise because other people aren't self-policing. Okay, and you've got people sweating up and down Brickell Avenue, coming right up against you, South Miami Avenue, Biscayne, so I guess the bottom line answer is what you're saying is, as much as we'd like a one-size-fits-all solution today, the answer is that people have to start just policing themselves and behaving responsibly.
Yes, I mean, we're out there and we're doing our best, but I mean, we can't police everyone. It's just impossible. We have officers at the parks because we closed the parks and people were still going into the parks. So we have to take resources and put them into the parks. So, I just would love for everybody to take this as serious as it is and just kind of police themselves and, just maybe find other places to walk and to exercise and to take the children out and let them run up and down the street in front of your home, maybe,
Sure. One of the other, I think, issues that's confusing for some of the people that are coming onto the call, which again, it's amazing there's so many of them. I know for me, when I moved to Miami, it was incredibly confusing. I didn't understand all these different municipalities. Maybe Commissioner Russell, you could just tell everyone in the audience what the differences are, because I know they're confused about, is this, somebody wrote in and said, is this about Miami-Dade today, or is this about Brickell, or what? So
I saw that. Yes. So this is the Brickell Area Association group. So I'm going to assume that everybody on here has an interest in the Brickell area.
Correct.
You are within the city of Miami, and you are also within Miami-Dade County. So you're lucky you have two commissioners who represent you, and sometimes our issues overlap completely, but sometimes the county covers things that the city does not. So I am your city commissioner, one of 5, and my area includes Brickell. And my name's Ken Russell. So that we're in District 2. So all of your city-related issues, and since we're in the incorporated city of Miami, the City of Miami Police, and your commander is here, your county commissioner, Eileen Higgins, will also have jurisdiction in our area for the things that the county covers. And that has a lot to do with water and sewer, transportation, the county roads that go through the city, and the homeless trust, which is managed by the city. So Eileen is fielding most of the questions with regard to that. And the commander obviously is going with the enforcement things, and I'll be answering questions with regard to the city.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that overview.
Should we move on to the next topic?
Can I clarify one more thing before we move on?
Sure.
Reference social distancing. And also do understand that this is not an arrestable offense, the lack of social distancing. So I want to make that clear. People think like, hey, he doesn't have on a mask, or he's not, moving away. It's not arrestable. So we enforced it, we encourage it, we educate, and, we try to do our best. So when we're not looking, people will just, be respectful for others.
There's a question here actually on the feed that just popped off, is whether any increase in police presence is considered given the greater number of pedestrian traffic.
Yes, we have increased police presence. We definitely have.
Yeah, I've seen police cars in the parks. I would say more people are exercising now than they ever have in the past. I see
Right,
more people.
I
I
agree.
Exactly.
And here is something I would like to try to, I don't want to say discourage you, but keep this in mind. They say social distancing is 6 feet. Now that's in a stagnant air, but I want you to picture a child blowing a bubble, right? And watch where that bubble can travel. I want you to picture someone with a vape pen making a cloud of smoke, and you can picture how far that goes. That, if your breath could be visible, and the potential for transmission, riding in a Peloton, bicycle behind bicycle, is not a great idea. Jogging, even with someone you know, shoulder to shoulder, is not a great idea. And the misconception is that people know each other, so they feel that person's less likely to be infected. You have no idea who they've been in contact with. So even if you go walking with your neighbor, you've got to maintain the distance. Best is just try to go where people are not. That's really the best advice the commander gave, and I think that's great.
Commissioner Higgins.
Back to me. So first, the one thing I wanted to say from the last slide was, I just want to talk about everything the county has done, because we are in charge of making sure the health system is prepared. And that is something we've done a phenomenal job on. As a matter of fact, today, even though we have hundreds of COVID patients in our hospitals, we have more open hospital beds than we did at the 1st of March. And we have more open ICU beds. And we have converted any anesthesiology machine that's available to be prepared to be converted to a ventilator. So you all helped us break the curve, and the health system has not been overwhelmed. God willing, we'll never need them, but we have 3 field hospitals that we've built just in case. So as long as we do our part, what we have been doing has been working, and the system is not overwhelmed. If you want to go to the next slide. Also, just in case anybody gets a phone call from the county is doing something very unique. We're part of a study that's being led by the University of Miami Health System. And we are doing quick, tests, but of a broad range. We'd like to test over the next couple of weeks, 750 residents a week. So if you get a phone call asking, it's a University of Miami Health, we're trying to get a sense of how many people have had it and have never been symptomatic. Now, as you all know, we're starting to get the beginnings of the antibody tests. And this particular test has a wider range of errors, so it might have more false positives and more false negatives. We're not using it for health purposes, but we're just using it to get a lay of the landscape so University of Miami can begin to get a little more research around that. Go to the next slide. I don't remember what it is now. Let's see.
That's actually the perfect segue into the next area, which is the reopening of the city. And since you did bring up tests, there has been it has been reported that right now there's a big backlog in terms of the amount of, in terms of tests and what's actually being reported by the Florida Department of Health. You mentioned a little while, you mentioned just now, Commissioner Higgins, that the curve is starting to flatten. Do we have enough data to be able to assert that, knowing that there is a big backlog, and B, that according to data that was published by the Miami Herald, we're testing at a rate of about 1 per 100 people in the.
No, I'm not Dr. Fauci, so I don't even play a doctor on TV. But here's what I can tell you about the county's numbers. We have been running numerous. I think we now have 7 or 8 widespread testing sites. Marlin Stadium, we're able to do 800 a day. We've been doing almost 750 a day at Dolphin Stadium for almost 6 weeks. We have kind of a good sense on that those, and there used to be a giant backlog. Like sometimes we wouldn't get those tests back until 5 days. And now we're doing much better on that turnaround. So the state's numbers, I don't even look at them. Okay, because they are only reporting. So here's what happens. Let's say you go to your doctor and he swabs your nose and he sends it to LabCorp. LabCorp is not required to report, nor is your doctor required to report that they've received a test, right? They are only required to report the results of those tests, so they get positive or negative. So the state system right now, by law, doesn't have that information. So you're right, and the Herald is right. There is a backlog of tests. What I know is the majority of the testing that's going on in this county is occurring at our drive-through sites. as well as at our emergency rooms. And so we don't have a 10-day backlog on these. And we've been consistently testing people with symptoms, right? Because that's all we've had those high quality swab tests to have. We have been able to also test first responders, bus drivers, like people that, you know, police officers, our corrections officers, and obviously healthcare professionals who are at great risk. So we still don't have what I consider to be the widespread testing that would make all of us comfortable, right? Where I get my little blood test, it tells me that I'm negative, right? And we're months away from having the capacity probably to do that. So I know there's been a lot of talk about how do we open. Right now, as far as I can see, the only opening discussions that are beginning to happen in this county are, could we be more flexible with parks, right? And I know the county mayor has convened a task force that included all the municipalities to talk about that and to see whether or not there's some way to open some open spaces to relieve the pressure on our urban streets with walkability. Obviously, it's not going to mean volleyball and softball and these other things. And I think it would come with stricter enforcement than we've done in the past. So I am not, there's certainly a lot of discussion about whether or not we would open, but I am certainly not seeing that the county is going to start, you know, opening bars and restaurants and events until there's widespread testing available. And even our airport, like one of the things that Commissioner Russell didn't mention is the county is responsible for your port and your airport. And so we went from having about 120,000 passengers a day. We're down more by 95%. Hardly anybody's going in and out of there. And I think air travel is going to return, right? We're going to go to a line. We're going to get our pin pricked. We're going to be negative, or we're going to have antibodies, and then we'll go through security. So this is all going to ramp up slowly. It's depressing, quite frankly, because we all would like to get out of the house and get back to seeing our colleagues in 3 dimensions rather than 2. So the county mayor, cities can be stricter than the county, but the county may, and bear in mind, the county has some very rural areas, like agricultural areas, so we do have a few things. The mayor is going to do a conference call or some kind this evening, and he'll be at least sharing some ideas on this. But I'm not expecting, I mean, I could be wrong, I'm not the mayor, but I'm not expecting any big announcement this weekend about any changes.
So that really begs the question, which is one of the questions that's up on the slides now. Who decides? What is the process? Who decides it? And who's planning it? Obviously, there's not a plan yet, but how is that plan expected to come together? Do you have any insight into that? Because we hear
so
on the federal level.
Sure, if I could, this is very interesting that we're getting a little civics lesson here on county and city jurisdictions. The county and city mayors are quite competitive, actually, and as we've come into this crisis, that's actually served us. Sometimes it doesn't serve us at all, but there's been a bit of a one-upping of each other with regard to testing, with regard to closures. And so these were bold moves to take, just for someone to say, you know, Ultra canceled and the potential legal ramifications and all the different things, restaurants closed. These are big decisions. And when one mayor went, the other one went right with them. And then with the testing, for example, we weren't getting enough from the federal government. The city started buying its own tests and contracting with its own labs and training our own EMTs to do in-home swabs. The county was doing exactly the same at the same time. We started at age 65, and one was drive-through, and one was drive-through. Then one went down to 18-year-old, the other one did. Now they started doing in-home testing. At this point, anyone 18 and over can get a test through drive-through or at their own home if they can't drive, if they have any one of the symptoms. Now, this has served us, and this is a good thing. What I really think has been unfortunate is the federal communication on testing and masks has flip-flopped, and that's really betrayed the trust of the public. At first, they told us you shouldn't wear a mask because it actually increases your chance of infection by touching your face. This was a myth because there just weren't enough masks, and they shouldn't have said that. They should have really said, yes, masks are good for you, where we are now, but we don't have enough of N95, so get what you can of the cloth. Same thing with testing. Originally they said you shouldn't get tested if you don't have all of the symptoms or have had contact with a positive. But now we're finally to the point where we've got enough tests that they're telling the truth. Yes, everyone should get tested if we can. We have the capacity. And so we're getting there and ramping up, but it's difficult with the trust. Now, as for reopening, the city cannot go before the county with regard to opening up. So as the county decides, we can open up this type of business, this type of restaurant, this type of beach or park. But the city can wait. If the city doesn't believe that we are ready yet to open up XYZ, we can slow it down, but we can't speed up. So the lead will have to be the county, and then the city will either go at the same time or soon after. But we're definitely going to go when we know we have the right systems in place to ensure that it's safe, and that we know that we're at the right point in the curve that it's safe.
And I'll give you just an example. Like, for example, the county has decided we don't need a curfew, but many cities have decided they would prefer one. And so the city of Miami, city of Miami Beach, city of Coral Gables. So cities can be more strict than the county if they feel that that's the best solution for their population. And our chief, the county's police, and just so you get a sense, the county is almost 3 million people. And for about half of them, the county is their city. We pick their garbage up, we put their police department, we put their fires out. So anybody in unincorporated Dade, we provide those city services for. And our chief of police has been telling us the night shift is very, very quiet, and he's okay not having, our crime is down in every way in the county, with the exception of domestic violence. And so our police officers are continuing to go in everywhere in the county and encountering domestic violence calls, which are among some of the most dangerous they ever go into. And so, but we haven't felt the need for a curfew. People aren't out on the streets looting but other cities have been more strict.
So then in trying to frame this out for the 200 plus people on this call, just so I can try and understand it, and maybe they understand it, in terms of this plan to reopen, what you're basically saying at the end of the day is that it's going to have to start at the top with the governor loosening up some of the restrictions, correct? And then Jimenez will have to then loosen up the restrictions, and then the mayor and the city of Miami and the city commissioners will loosen up restrictions. And the reason I'm saying that is a lot of the questions we've gotten today are things like, can we reopen gyms? Can we reopen community pools? Can we open up condo pools? And the basic answer to that is none of that can happen until the county lifts those restrictions. And that depends on whether or not there's one from the governor or not on top of it. So it's not as though the city can make those decisions. They were also asking, and I just want to clarify about this, we can't close certain streets just arbitrarily. Commissioner Russell can't decide, even though he might like to close Brickell and make it one way and South Miami another way. Because those are, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's, it's US 1. So that's a major thoroughfare. So you can't just arbitrarily close that, right, Commissioner Russell?
Yes, and no matter what street it is, even if it's a city street, the county is in charge of deciding on flow of traffic. So if I want to do a street closure, I would put a request in to the county, and they would make that decision.
Okay, and one of the other things I wanted to mention in here, because we did say that it is the Brickell Alliance that's hosting this town hall, but please know that we did partner all the way up Biscayne. We've got participants from, I think, Cynthia, you had the number last, I think it's at least 50 different buildings, condos, all along Biscayne as well. So this didn't end at 8th Street or 5th Street. This goes all the way up. So you've got residents, Ken, all the way up to your bridge, 79th. You've got people on this call. So it's not just Brickell.
And we, just to let you know, through the DDA, we did actually do a trial balloon with FDOT, who controls Biscayne Boulevard, to see if there was a way of perhaps getting rid of a lane or anything else. And the response we got back from the state is that violates what the governor's intent is for stay at home. We don't want more people out of the house. You know, we want them in the house. So we did send that trial balloon up, but it was burst.
So if I could comment to this slide and bring things into perspective a little, if I'm able to share my screen, is that all right?
Yes, you are.
All right, I'm going to give this a try. I haven't done this yet, so I'm going to try sharing.
Sharing first. Okay.
Let's see. No, I'm not trying to record my screen. Let me just see. Share content.
It's on the bottom.
Screen. Okay, that's not working. All right, so let me do share content. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
Let me grab a link for you, and I'm going to share through a link. I apologize. I'm not better rehearsed on this. Here we go. Website URL. Share. All right, now we should see.
Yep.
This is what I wake up to every morning.
Yeah,
hopefully this
we all
loads
do.
correctly.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to go through the Johns Hopkins version of the world, and then you can see the U.S. and how Florida is in that. But I'm just going to start on Florida, and you can see where we are as a state. And there is questions about the veracity of all the numbers, et cetera. But let's just say, for argument's sake, we're at 24,000 cases and 686 deaths. You can see Miami-Dade County is the epicenter in Florida of this disease. If you click on Miami-Dade, you can see that we have over 8,000 cases and 190 deaths. That's about a third of the cases in the state in our one county, and it's about a fifth of the deaths in the state. And it's pretty significant. Now, if you go by zip code, you can see all the zip codes with regard to testing, and there's some accuracy issues here, but I want to show you as we get into our Brickell downtown Edgewater area. The red would be the most extreme. I think it's more than 500 cases, but those are red herrings actually, because those reds there are Jackson Hospital, and that area is where testing is happening. And for lack of the resident putting in their zip code, the zip code of the testing location is put in. So don't count those two red spots. But what you do want to count is that the Grove, area code 33133, has 122 cases. 33129 has 35 cases. And as we get into downtown, 51 cases. And up in getting north downtown, 79, Edgewater, 120 cases. So if you compare that with the numbers in the county and the numbers in the state, you can see we are a very at-risk community right now. And the density of the population would really lend itself to why. I mean, we're very close together. There's a lot of people very near each other in multifamily towers. And that would explain a lot of the transmission we're seeing. So this goes toward exercise as well. I would say right now, groceries and exercise and hardware stores are probably one of our larger vectors of transmission. And so we really, really want to be careful and take this very, very seriously. We do not want to be in a rush right now to open up. Whether or not we are flattening the curve or outside the curve is a really good question. I would say that we, by taking the very strong actions we've taken, are nowhere near and will not be anywhere near the situation New York is in. For people to really understand, it's not about just keeping the number of cases down. It's about making sure there's enough beds and ventilators available, and we have complete capacity at this point in the health system, over 30% to 40% bed capacity and plenty of ventilators available. So that means our fatality rate is going to stay down low no matter, as long as we keep this rate of infection about where it is, and then hopefully it gets less and less. But let's not be in a rush. Let's take this really seriously. I'm very confident that we've done all the right moves at this point to make sure we are where we are now and are being as safe as possible. So I'll stop sharing.
Can I ask you a question that tees off of that? I don't understand, and I'm sure a lot of other people don't understand why, if there is such a spike, particularly downtown, or such a high density, why we are still allowing construction sites to continue with construction, where I can guarantee you every day I could take a photo of lack of mask, social distancing, all the rest. when we do a hurricane, when we have a hurricane coming through, we're able to close down. They secure everything and they shut down the construction site. So there's two big complaints about that. One is the concern for the people on the construction sites working, and the spread, and them going home to their families and spreading it even more. And then the second one is a sort of selfish one, the noise that goes along with it. These people are locked up at home. What are we doing about ongoing construction projects going on also in buildings where there's noise going on? There's no ordinance against it, and these people are being driven crazy.
I mean, I just, from the county perspective, you know, I fed in my my pretty strong opinion that what I call vertical construction versus horizontal construction is very different. And I have been texting photographs of what I consider to be egregious errors, and showcasing, you know, particularly vertical construction. You've got 3 or 4 guys in an elevator. So several of the construction sites I've reported are now down to the guy driving the elevator and 1 person. But I you know, I tend to agree with you. I have looked at our road construction projects, and those folks, first of all, they're not in close quarters, and second of all, they've done a much better job at maintaining social distancing, probably better than our residents on the Rickenbacker Causeway.
Absolutely. No, and that's a different discussion.
Right, but anyway, but the mayor has, and the governor, actually the governor has deemed that you know, an essential activity. And so I can tell you the county police force every day has been inspecting about 180 construction sites, but that, you know, that doesn't necessarily cover city money, but you should be calling code enforcement, right, Ken?
Right, but at the same time, go ahead, Commander.
So what the police department has done, we have created a business compliance detail where it's a group of officers, and we do partner with the fire department, and we do check the construction sites to make sure that they have to wear masks and they have to practice social distancing. If they're not, we will close them down. However, like the commissioner said, like Commissioner Higgins said, it is essential for the work that they do. Some of the work that they do is very much needed. So we just have to, that's just another group that the police department has to police. So we do check those construction sites every day.
Now, I don't think anybody's arguing about the roads. I really don't think anybody's going to argue about doing the major interchanges and road work. I think the issue is in residential condos that are occupied right now, where they're allowing major renovation, concrete work, and also on new construction sites for luxury condos. You know, it just doesn't, it's hard to understand how this is allowed to happen when everybody else is being told to shelter in place.
I mean, the city can be more strict, I think, right?
Sure. Neither the city manager, the city mayor, the county mayor, or the governor have raised a voice at all about construction.
And we just
and I'll be as honest with you as I can. I mean the governor deemed wrestling as essential. So
yeah,
there's
right.
really hard to understand the logic behind this and whether there's any political reasoning behind some of this. I will say that the city is projecting significant revenue losses in this next year. It's scary where we could be. After 08, 09, 2008, 2009, we had to lay off so many employees, and it was very difficult. It was a very difficult time. It was before I was in government, but for those who were here, it was a rough time that we do not want to repeat. It cuts down on the services to the city. You've already seen the garbage cycle starting to cut down, but it'll start to affect all of that. And the biggest loss will be basically real estate tax revenue. So I haven't had this conversation with the city manager in terms of why or the logic that construction is continuing. But if the conversation were, and I've had this conversation with the mayor, he's sort of walking a fine line with it, and he's ready to close them down. He stated so in the Herald last week. If it gets to a point where we feel that they are currently truly having a risk. So some construction sites have closed voluntarily. They've written op-eds about why they believe that all should be done. Others are putting in stringent measures and self-policing, as well as us going by and the county going by. So far, the city manager and on up have not felt that these are causing a greater risk than the benefit of allowing them to stay open at this point.
If I may move on or circle back actually to testing within the context of reopening. According to the New York Times this week, most public health experts are warning against premature decisions to force the economy into motion again, and fear that vast stretches of the country still lack crucial supplies and systems, particularly when it comes to expanded testing capacities, when many governors have said that they don't have access to them. That same publication is also reporting that Florida is among the states that is looking to lift some of the stay-in-place orders. And today, in fact, they cited the opening of the beaches in Duval County as of today in 10 minutes, actually at 5 o'clock. So
Sure.
The first question is, how are we in terms of having the ability to do generalized or universal testing if need be? And what criteria do you believe is going to be used to reopen Miami?
We cannot do generalized testing. Right now, we are testing people with symptoms, right? That's our capacity, just like every other state in the country.
So,
so like if I'm at home, if like me, I have no reason to get tested, right? I would be taking a test from someone that could possibly really benefit from it, because right now I have no symptoms. So we're a long ways away from having generalized population testing. And by the way, I don't know how long that is. I don't know if that's 6 months or 9 months. So folks like Mayor Jimenez and Mayor Suarez are grappling with, do we literally stay home forever, or do we find ways now that we have learned? Because I actually think I have changed how I behave, right? Relative to this. And I social distance. I don't think I'm really gonna get comfortable. I mean, it's interesting. It's a new habit. I've never washed my hands so much in my entire life, and I was usually pretty good at it. And so I do think they're really gonna be grappling with what things might be safe and what aren't gonna be safe. And I can tell you the only thing that I have heard being discussed in our county right now is there a chance to making our open spaces more available? That's the only thing I've heard. So I just think the media is terrifying us, but I am on the emergency calls every morning, which is an hour and a half minimum. And the only thing that I can see is being discussed, unless they're having secret meetings without us at the county level, right? The only thing that is being talked about, no decisions have been made, is could we find a way for people to walk on paths in our parks? So I don't feel like we're yet getting ahead. I don't feel like we're moving forward to that.
Here's the concern, and pardon me for interjecting. And this is not something that came from the media. This is actually an opportunity that I had to speak to the chief medical officer of Boston Healthcare for the Homeless. And granted, this is data that comes from homeless, but this group in particular is the largest organization of its kind in the U.S. They employ 500 people, they have 50 physicians, and they have 50 clinics for homeless across the Boston area. They did a test across 397 homeless people who were asymptomatic. And when the test came back, they found that 147 were positive and likely contagious. So I understand it's clear that we're testing only people that are symptomatic, but it's also clear that that does not minimize our risk of being.
Let me be very clear. We're not ready to reopen, right? We're not ready to reopen. If the mayor reopens this thing, I will be on every television station in this county saying he's an idiot, okay? I mean, we are not ready to reopen, which does not mean we shouldn't talk about how it might happen, right? Because things are changing. Mostly, we can get masks. We can't get all the N95s we want, but mostly we can get PPE, gloves and masks for people like us that are doing jobs that we may need to go out of the house for. We can get gowns now for that, right? So we still are struggling to order all the PPE for our first responders, right? Until I know I can get every fireman, you know, and I can get every police officer and have that in stock and everybody at our hospitals. And let's remember, we have a lot of people. Let me tell you who's most at risk. More than a third of the county employees that are positive, you know where they work? The jail.
Hmm.
So as our police officers are keeping us safe, they have to arrest people. And they go to the county jail, and those folks are going in and out. And so those people that work in corrections, they are putting themselves at great risk to keep us safe. So for me, I don't believe we're ready to open, but I also don't see that our local elected officials are going to try to behave in a way that's going to put us in danger. I don't know, Ken, what is your perspective from the?
I'm very with you, Eileen. I mean, we talked about how competitive the executive leadership is at the legislative level. Eileen and I meet twice a week right now on Zoom with every overlapping elected official in our district. So we meet with our state representative, our state senator, and our U.S. Congresswoman, and the six of us get together twice a week, and we're very much lockstep. We've been talking about testing, we've been talking about unemployment, we've been talking about small business, recovery, openings, everything. So I'm very much with you on this, Eileen. It's a very big hardship we're going through, but it is literally saving lives at this point, and we're doing the right thing. If it's going to open back up, it's going to be done in the right way.
I don't know if you've been so wonderful in answering this and dealing with this. We've got like the Q&A sort of blowing up about the fact that they feel that you have not adequately addressed their concerns.
Which one?
Regarding the homeless, the garbage. There's quite a feed of people that are saying that more needs to be done regarding having the homeless sleeping everywhere in front of their homes. Y'all can take a look at it. I think you can pull them up, you know, the Q&As as they go
Yeah.
along. I'm trying, you know, and then of course there's so they say that we haven't answered the question. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is that they want you to address with this.
I'll cut to the chase on it. It's a very frustrating situation for those residents, and I guess the business owners aren't open anymore, but it's prevalent on the streets. But the commander has addressed this, and Commissioner Higgins has addressed this. The people who are on the streets are refusing shelter at this point, and we cannot legally drag them off the streets to shelter. We can educate them about shelter in place. We can help them with testing if they're symptomatic. We have hotel rooms available. So it's not about there's not enough shelter for them. There is a place for every homeless person who wants to go in right now, especially during this pandemic. The Homeless Trust has upped their spend on the hotel issue. And this is it's the least efficient way. And they're spending the most amount of money per person when they put them into a hotel room, but they're doing it. So the homeless that are out there at this point, because they're not in the parks anymore, I mean, it's simply a fact of life right now. There is no way for us to drag someone off the streets who does not want to come off the streets, and we can't arrest them for being too close together. But we are not seeing what you're hearing about in Boston. We have not had an influx of homeless into the ICUs and there has been testing, there has been outreach. If someone is symptomatic, they can get a test. And we see, you know, that number you gave in Boston showed that more than half of those tested would be positive at this point. And that creates a very big fear that the homeless are a major vector for transmission. We don't believe that they are in our community, but we do recognize the frustration for residents, and imagine how it is for the homeless that they're out there right now. I mean, this is a very stressful time for us in our homes. Imagine how it is for those out in the street. Imagine how it is for those with psychological issues that aren't seeking shelter or help and don't have the mental capacity to want to come in. So it's a very aggravating time, and I do understand that there unfortunately is no positive answer for you on that. There is no magic wand to reduce homelessness more than we have at this point.
I think
Thank you for sharing that.
to the,
Can I?
please.
So to add to that, if anyone has an issue with homeless in front of their homes or in front of the businesses, we do get the complaints, we get the calls. Just call the police and we'll come out and we'll address it accordingly. Okay.
Yes, we certainly can still act and enforce on anyone who is being aggressive, anyone who's doing illegal behavior. That can certainly be enforced. And the garbage thing, I'd love to help on that. So let's do some spot checks. Eileen and I overlap downtown. We can work through the DDA. We can work through solid waste and public works, and we'll take note of that and really do a good sweep.
Yeah, there seems
because
to
yes,
be,
I'm sure it is stacking up.
there's a lot of complaints in the area along Flagler, along the river there with this issue. Okay, I've seen it myself along Biscayne. Is there a non-emergency number they can call, Commander, as opposed to calling 911? Because it's a huge issue, but is there a secondary number they should call at the city of Miami in order that they don't call 911 in order to get the homeless, to report a situation?
Definitely. That number is 305-579-6111.
579.
305-579-6111. That is our non-emergency phone number.
Okay, so that's where they should be calling.
Yes.
And okay, perfect. All right, thank you for sharing that.
Should we move on to the CARES Act, or are there any other questions from the speed that you wanted to address, Mia?
No, we're good.
Okay, so and I know that the Commissioner Higgins had some slides to this effect, and one of
I'm going there.
One of the key issues is that in the case of the state of Florida, our unemployment insurance system is really one of the worst ones in the country. I guess the question is, what is it that we as a community can do to put pressure on our legislators to see if we can fix that both in the short term and then in the longer term?
So I believe, so the unemployment system, just to give people a little bit of perspective, the previous governor dismantled the unemployment system and made it a reemployment system. So he created a system that made it extremely difficult for people who lost their jobs to get a yes out of the system. They also cut the benefits to only $275 a week, which is about $6 an hour. And if you lose, a job as whatever, how do you live on $6 a week? It's hard. So the system was bad in the best of times, and then in the crush of unemployment applications just simply collapsed. A number of us, including Commissioner Russell, many of you are represented by Senator Jose Javier Rodriguez, who took the lead on this for our neighborhoods, put a ton of pressure on the governor to do a couple of things. And so the original system literally crashed. So people for 3 weeks were unable to apply. They now have a new website, which is a little bit better. And importantly, the state of Florida does not allow gig economy workers to get unemployment, but the federal stimulus package that's giving $600 a week does. And so finally, the new website does allow people who work in the gig economy, are self-employed, and have lost their ability to earn an income to apply. The governor, one of the things Commissioner Russell and I have spent a lot of time pressuring the state on is to make the benefits retroactive. The state system requires, it's the date you submit your application that counts as when benefits start. And we are saying it is no one's fault that for 6 weeks they haven't been able to submit an application. And we are trying to force him to make it retroactive. So if anyone would like to send the governor a little note, that is really the message, is the system is bad. No one's gotten their checks. The state, he has put a new person in charge, and they are beginning to revamp the system. And I do believe that maybe I hate to say this, some checks are starting to come out, but there are several 100,000, almost probably 750,000 applications behind. So the fact that they're so behind and we got those applications in so late, please just ask the governor to make those benefits retroactive to the day you lost your job. Many people,
if I could.
Yeah, please, Ken.
So Eileen and I drafted that letter along with our working group of 6 people. And since then, 65 other elected officials statewide, bipartisan, have signed on. This would be such an easy fix for the governor. We know it's taking time to fix all the other administrative issues, but this would give people such a stress relief and a relief on the system if they weren't everybody rushing, flooding the system now, if they knew they had a little breathing room. So if you see the governor make a move on this, you'll know that he received a lot of pressure. They don't seem to want to. They want to put the onus on the applicant, and they feel like it's this two-way street, and they have this picture in their mind of people just sitting on their couches and not trying. And so I want you to check in every 2 weeks and prove that you're looking for work and sign back in. The people are out of the job because of our government policies. And so we have very much our policies, local and state and federal. We have a responsibility to make it easy for people to find that relief. And so Eileen and I have been working on that, and hopefully it comes through.
A question came up on here, and it leads into this, is for people who are home and would like to reach the governor or voice their opinion on this, how would you suggest they do that?
Well, we'll look up an email address for him. I've been writing his chief of staff. You can also send it to us and we can forward it on, but we'll get you a good email address for.
He hasn't answered us, by the way.
No, he hasn't. But he is answering it in his press conferences.
Correct.
He will not answer us directly, but he is being asked these questions because we have probably 1 million already applicants in the system. The county, just because we have a big library system, we have started, some people don't have printers at home, and the online system is still so clogged, you are able to fill out a paper form, and you can, so the closest libraries that are open for you all would probably be Coconut Grove, and then the Hispanic Branch Library. You can drive through and you can pick up an unemployment application already printed out. And in addition, our libraries, let's remember, for some people, it's the idea of food stamps. The SNAP program is a stigma, but let's be real. If you've been working for 20, 25 years, paying taxes into Washington up there, you have been donating all along through your taxes so that others can take advantage of that safety net of food security. So if you've lost your job and you don't think you're going to get it back for a while, you should absolutely apply for the SNAP benefits that you deserve. And we have those applications as well at the library if anyone wants to pick those up there.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the federal stimulus funds. And Commissioner Higgins, you did have some points that you brought up.
Yeah. So the individual checks, not the checks, but the individual direct deposits have started to go out. I certainly know some people that have received them and others haven't. The IRS has started to put a little Q&A box that isn't perfect if you haven't received yours. Anybody that's on Social Security or disability, you will be getting your check. You don't have to do anything about it. However you get your Social Security, if it goes to a debit card, if it goes to your bank account, if you get a check mailed, that will come out. For anyone that didn't file taxes, you really should look on the IRS website to put information in there. If you've changed your address, you should change your address with the IRS. So this link here, which if anybody wants, we can send, or you can feel free to share this presentation with your members. You can link to that website. Anybody that's a small business owner, including like single person companies, like even though we heard the money ran out on the small business programs and the Paycheck Protection Program, Congresswoman Shalala Ken and I were with her today. She's assured us that that money will be replenished in the coming days. And everybody should just research those two programs because they're pretty good, and get your paperwork together. And we have a link. If you can't get this, I've got a resource guide for small businesses that's 5 or 6 long. And if you just email District 5, that's the number 5, at miamidade.gov, we can get you that. And then there's a local group that's put together a nice website called accesshelps.com.
Yeah,
and that has a lot of good information for people as well. I don't know, Ken, you have any other ideas or thoughts?
On what?
I don't know, small business stuff. It's slow. It's just like unemployment. I mean, I keep trying to say to myself, if someone gave me $2 trillion 2 weeks ago, would I have it all figured out in 2 weeks? And
no, it's really unfortunate, because the more savvy businesses, which usually means the larger businesses, scooped up most of the money first, and the little guys and the little banks have really trailed behind till the money's gone. But it's not the end of it. There's going to be, we were on our call today with Representative Shalala, Congresswoman. She said there's at least 2 more aid packages in the works right now. And so there's CARES 2.5, I think she called it, and then COVID 4. They're coming up with all these names. So they're going to be fixing the system as they go. They're, what do they call it? Building the train while it's on the tracks, kind of thing. But the intent is there. The unanimous agreement within the Congress is there to provide this aid. And so our job locally, we're just trying to work with the federal government to make sure that we roll it out locally and have the outreach directly with those companies. So if you have a small business, feel free to contact even your local representative like myself or Eileen, and we're helping them, put the puzzle pieces together. I'm working with a lot of small businesses every day. I've been working with a lot of restaurants trying to help them out as possible, but I understand how frustrating it is in the application process. Just keep trying and then wait for the next package and keep trying. Don't give up. You have to.
Are you aware of any particular business resources, or could we include some business resources for people? They want to know where are business webinars available for them to walk them through this. It is confusing, to say the least.
So one of the things we could do, we just hosted today with the SBA and with the Small Business Development Corp, SBDC, out of FIU, a webinar. I can happily send you guys a link if anybody wants to rewatch it. But the SBA does do webinars on both the disaster loans and the PPP program. And then I encourage you to call the FIU SBDC. It's basically free consulting, and they are really helping and coaching small businesses through this process. And for anyone that needs help in Spanish, primarily, we partner a lot with a group called Prospera, and they also have been doing an excellent job at helping businesses know how to put their paperwork together. And on that resource guide, we don't have a chat button here, but we have a Google Doc that we'll send you guys the link to, and then you can have anybody just download that. It has a bunch of webinars, a bunch of people to call.
If somebody on your staff emails that to me now, I can put it up on the screen.
Okay. If you click on the resources, it'll probably take you to the
Okay.
Google, but
Got it. Will do.
okay.
Actually, Camila from Commissioner Higgins' office has been texting me a whole bunch of resources that we definitely should email out to everyone, from the address for Governor DeSantis and the phone numbers to call. There's a really long list here. We can post it now, or we can send it out to everyone once we conclude this webinar.
Okay.
So do we want to move on to the census?
Yep.
So obviously, because we're all staying in place, the census becomes a problem for the census takers. But I know that Commissioner Higgins had also put together some slides with respect to this. And really our question is, how can we help as Brickell Alliance, how can we help to help increase the participation levels in the census?
I mean, I think most of us, at least in this neck of the woods, are living in high-rise buildings, and so it's difficult to get in, and we don't want people interrupting us. So the best thing to do is, if you want to go to the next slide, you'll see some local data on Brickell. So what it basically, if you can just push this out through your email list, guys, we're at home. Go to mycensus2020.gov and fill it out. It took 5 minutes for me. Other people have taken 10 minutes, but our areas in Brickell are pretty behind the Miami-Dade average. I think maybe it's a build slide. There's a couple other charts. If you just flip a little forward.
One
more. You'll begin to see kind of where we are in catching up. And this is crucial. Obviously, it will decide our public health system gets funded this way, transportation gets funded this way, roads get funded this way. Head Start programs for kids that just don't, their parents can't afford to put them in preschool get funded. So you're really helping your county by being counted on that. And it is easy. Ken, right? It's easy.
I'm sorry, I'm answering a bunch of these. I see the questions.
You're in Q&A. Okay, well, it's easy.
I'm typing as you're talking, trying to answer some folks.
Answer some questions. Yeah, so it's easy. If you could just spread the news through your newsletters. Camilla from my team, which Cynthia's chatting with, we have a bunch of graphics, a bunch of links, a bunch of things. So if anybody wants that for their condo newsletters, just reach out to us and we will get that. It'll be turnkey for you.
I think we're going to try and put a bunch of these resources up on the Brickell Alliance website, right? Which is www.brickellalliance.org. And then we'll give you sort of, I'm typing into the question and answer now, the contact information for the governor, which I just got that people had been asking for. And I think, Cynthia, do you want to go to some of the other questions in there while I do this?
There was another question that came up regarding the census, and it has to do with people that are foreigners and that have or that have investment property here in Florida. How does and they may be using those properties as their U.S. based address? How does the census capture that data, or is that data included?
It should be included. If this is their U.S. home, they probably should be counted. Right? If they have 5 apartments and they rent them out, this is not their home. And then, I mean, every now and then you meet someone that's lucky enough to have 3 U.S. homes, right? One in New York, one in Miami, one in L.A. They really need to pick one. But it is the honor system mostly. I mean, all of this is being returned anonymously, except for your address. So they don't know whether you filled it out 3 times. So it's a little like social distancing. It's the honor system. But if this is your, maybe you're in Colombia half the time and you're in Miami the other half of the time, if this is your U.S. home, you are this is your U.S. residence.
Yeah. I'm going through the Q&A now. Mia, were there any other questions here that you were tagging that we should address?
Well, one of them was if there was a way to set aside time in the supermarkets for all the people who receive food stamps. Isn't that something that the individual supermarkets are deciding to do on their own?
I can check on that. Right now, what we have is a bunch of supermarkets that are putting hours for senior citizens because they're at risk for COVID-19, and then others have special hours for first responders and medical care workers. So the assumption is those folks are more at risk, and so we want fewer people in the grocery store. Food stamps now, the government's made an exception, and they can actually be used for online. Because let's remember, all of us are going to become, anybody who's unemployed is going to become a food stamp recipient, which is a good thing. Nobody should be without the benefits that they deserve as a taxpayer. And so we will be able to use those online to order groceries, and more grocery stores are starting to do that. But for right now, it's the people that are at risk for the disease that have special shopping hours, not folks that have recently entered the ranks of the unemployed.
Okay, thank you. So that was one of them. Let's see, what else have we got on here? I think we've addressed the governor and how to reach the governor, so we've taken care of that.
The county mayor just made a statement while we've been on here, if I could read it. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm on this other side. This is the New York Times reporting. Asked how long social distancing rules may last, Miami-Dade mayor says until we have a vaccine. You're looking at a year, but his administration is looking at how parks might reopen, perhaps allowing singles tennis, but not doubles. There you go.
Seriously?
That was the quote.
That's well and good for people to be able to get out and about and stretch their legs, but what about people who have businesses that need to?
Exactly.
Yes, we will find, there will be a way to open up parks and beaches when appropriate in the right way, and eventually there will be a way to open up businesses and restaurants in the right way when appropriate.
Well, there has to be, and I'm just going to tell you honestly.
We just don't have a horizon yet. We don't know when that horizon is yet. We can't see it yet.
Right, but we understand that. But a lot of the people who are on this call today that are your constituents, like myself, don't qualify. We are small business owners, and we don't qualify for any relief or assistance. I mean, there's only.
Why don't you qualify?
Because we either make more than 90 whatever 1,000 a year, or I went to the IRS website myself and it said I couldn't get a stimulus check because I file a certain type of tax return. I don't remember which one it is because I'm not that versed in it, but irregardless, it wouldn't matter. The fact is there's only so long we can go without working. I mean, we need to be able to get back to work. And a lot of us on this call today are part of associations, and the issue there becomes there's no relief for the associations, and people are going to stop paying their maintenance and assessments. So there's a whole trickle down. This is, it's a snowball. So, you know, it's great that he makes a comment about opening up and then references tennis, but I kind of feel a little bit insulted by that because I'm sitting here saying, my God, we need to get back to work. We need to be obviously healthy and well, but we need a realistic plan for how we're going to.
I just read the quote, but I can read between the lines. There's two extremes he's talking about there. He says social distancing will continue until we have a vaccine. That does not mean we will not open up a single restaurant until we have a vaccine. So, you know, the first step is going to be those beaches and parks and public places, and we're going to find the way to do that in a healthy and safe way. That when, you know, we have to have the ability to enforce, because if we just open up everything and people started violating, we simply do not have the police force, the park ranger force to really deal with that. So we just don't have that opening date yet, but I know everybody's working on it. The city of Miami has just put together a recovery. They're putting together a recovery supervisor and a recovery advisory board. It's parts of the administration that will be 100% dedicated to finding the way for our businesses to open back up, our public spaces to open back up, so that when the governor and the county mayor give the green light on their end, we'll be ready with our version of that for the city. So it's not being ignored.
Right. Go ahead, Cynthia.
I guess the frustration has to do with the fact that when you look at what, for example, the pacts that are being created on the West Coast with the West Coast states, with California, Washington, and Oregon, and when you look at what's happening on the East Coast with New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Connecticut, they are beginning to articulate what it is that they will be looking to do and what steps they believe need to be taken for them to start opening up the economy. And the reality is that what we're depending on is what comes down from DC, which is little to nothing. And then in addition to that, what's coming from Tallahassee, which is not all that much either. So I was heartened when I saw that Carlos Jimenez was trying to put together a coalition of the 4 counties, the 4 South Florida counties, to be able to hash through these issues. But there has to be some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. That doesn't mean that we say that we're going to open on May 15th, because we know that that's unrealistic. But there have to be some milestones that need to be set forth, the way they're doing it, for example, in California, and so that people can understand that, this is what's going to happen, then this is what's going to happen. Because right now, it's just limbo, and people who own businesses in particular need to be able to make disaster plans, and they can, other than the fact that we probably won't be able to go back to work for a very long time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not one to punch at other electeds, and I'll call out DeSantis for what he could do better in terms of the unemployment system. But, your local officials are very important. And if you've never really watched or engaged in local elections, this exact town hall is a very good reason that you should, because the city of Miami manages a $1.1 billion operating budget. The county's even much larger. And we are taking the steps to try to make up for the shortfalls or the slow reaction where the federal or state government is not able to service us at this point. And it's working. I mean, we wouldn't have a testing system here at all at this point if it weren't for the county and city governments beginning their own systems. I mean, we literally created it from scratch. And so, regardless of any frustrations you may have at the state or federal level, I am happy with where the county and the city have been on the issues so far. Mia, to answer your other question, there is a plan for you at the federal level, even if you don't qualify for unemployment benefits or for your business at the state level, or even within the SBA. There's a PUA at this point, a pandemic unemployment assistance, which is meant to try to fill those gaps that Eileen referenced earlier with the gig economy workers, the self-employed, and those who make over a certain amount. It's there. Whatever isn't there yet will be there in the coming packages. So keep an eye out, and I'll be glad to send links for resources. You had asked about where business owners can go through the Business Improvement District in the Grove, where I'm the chairman, and the Downtown Development Authority, where Eileen's a board member. They're compiling those resources for small businesses and medium-sized businesses to go and make sure they know all the things that are available to them. So we'll send you those links so you can send those out to everyone on this call a little bit.
And since you mentioned the DDA, I have a question about that, which maybe somebody can answer. I know Commissioner Higgins, you're on the DDA, and I'm just a little bit confused, and I think there's probably a lot of other people that don't understand. You're our commissioner, but yet somebody else, another commissioner, has a seat on the board of the DDA, and it's not
You're talking to me.
Yeah, so the DDA was created through the state, the county, and the city, and it is primarily an arm of the city of Miami because it serves city of Miami residents. The county gets one spot on the DDA, and that has traditionally been the commissioner for downtown and Brickell, right? So, which makes sense. So I serve on the DDA, but the city of Miami, they have votes, and it used to be that it was Ken and I working together on the DDA, which was great because he understands the district, because he represents the district very well. But the current city commission made a different decision.
Yeah,
Well,
as they could for Eileen as well. It
Yes.
is not legally bound to be your district commissioner, which is a bit of a shame in one sense. In other boards like the Coconut Grove Business Improvement District, it is an ex officio seat. The District 2 commissioner is the chairman of that board. So
Right.
the commission politically couldn't take it away from me. But I'm a silver lining kind of guy. If anything, we now have another city commissioner, another 20% of the commission who is focused on downtown and Brickell issues. And so theoretically, when it comes to something for downtown and Brickell, I'll have automatically 2 votes. That's the optimistic side of things. But I do believe I should be the chairman still of that organization. Don't get me wrong, but that's politics. So here we are.
You should feel, if there's issues and things the DDA is working out, of course you can reach out to me, but you should also reach out to the executive director and Commissioner Reyes, who's the new chair, because Ken is right. If we could get 2 people on the City of Miami Commission to really care about our urban issues, if it works out that way, it could be really, really beneficial to downtown and Brickell.
We
Brickell
hope. We
residents.
hope. As of last week, Manolo said Brickell's not Miami, but here we are.
I did not.
So,
like
I mean, it is what it is. But I am still in touch with the executive director there. I was talking to her just yesterday. So I am still involved. And now Eileen and I, another silver lining, do not have a government in the sunshine issue. Before, Eileen and I could not sit down and have a coffee and talk about downtown issues. Now we can because we're not on that board together. So I'm always an optimist.
And let me just throw out one more thing that the DDA has put together for all of us here. They have a resource team, a lot of which is volunteers, lawyers and bankers and people that just wanted to help downtown residents. So they have a small business resource center. So I'll get Christina to send you, it's probably on their website, knowing them, they're very good about that. But you should feel free, in addition to calling the SBDC, you should also feel free to call the Downtown Development Authority Small Business Resource. And quite frankly, if anybody on this call wants to help others and understand some of these small business things, or how to move marketing online rather than from something else, I'm sure it's an all volunteer army. So the DDA would be happy to have all kinds of other people helping on this.
And also, just as we get ready to wrap up here, I think Myrta's joining us again in a moment. I see a photo of her. I wanted to mention, some people wanted to know where they could volunteer. So perhaps after this, we could also put up on our site, if you send us some resources where people can help with food shelters and things of that nature. If we could get that out to the people that have participated today, that would be fantastic. Something just to give you some feedback. I don't know if you can see the polling we did. We did a poll during this town hall. Are you all able to see that? Ken, can you see that or not?
I don't see anything yet.
Okay, so we as we get ready to close out, I just wanted to let you know that your time was valuable and appreciated, because 94% of those found the town hall informative out of the respondents, and we had 93% response rate, okay, of people responding. So we'd like you to know that we thought that they really did find this worthwhile. We know your time is precious too, so I want you to know that it mattered. And the last thing is that we're hoping that we can continue to do this in the future, and that you all would be open to participating with us.
Yeah, hopefully in
Thank
person.
you.
Hopefully in person one day. That is my hope.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, this is Marta. Mia, you're not allowing me in
Yes, you're
for
in.
the video.
Yeah, you are. You're in.
Okay, I can't, I don't see it. Start my video. Okay, there we
There you
go.
are.
There you are.
There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, this has been amazing. I've been looking at some of the feeds and some of the comments. I'm sure you have too. And you guys have been so candid. It has been absolutely amazing. So on behalf of the Brickell Alliance, I would like to give a special thanks to our panelists. Commissioner Ken Russell, wonderful. Commissioner Eileen Higgins, the same. And our dear commander, Fabia Ellington, welcome. And we're looking forward to seeing more of you. We want to thank you not only for taking the time to be with us today, but for the continued service to our community. All of us appreciate your time and efforts on our behalf, and we thank you. We know it's a selfless effort, and we appreciate it. I would also like to thank very much our moderators. I mean, Cynthia and Mia, you have done an amazing job. And here is a virtual clap for all of you. It's been great. We trust that, and obviously we want to thank the almost 300 participants that logged in today. It was amazing. We trust that the following Brickell Alliance Town Hall meeting will take place in person Okay, we may have a couple more on the webinar, but sooner or later, ladies and gentlemen, we will do it in person. In the meantime, have a good evening, maintain your social distancing, stay safe and healthy, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Sorry for the
Bye.
hours we couldn't get to.